Howdy, y'all, and welcome back. We're looking at some interesting footage of driving from Amsterdam all the way up to Bath, England, and I believe also London areas in this video. Now, it sounds pretty interesting because, as you know, England is, well, an island, right? It's not connected to Amsterdam in any way. So that'll be interesting to see. And this also covers the topic of, driving in a different country, in this case, quite different, driving a left-hand car from, the Netherlands and driving that, of course, on the opposite side of the road in England, as well as dealing with lots of speed cameras. I don't know. Should be kind of interesting. Anything with traffic and automotive in different countries is what I'm all about, right? I always find this stuff really fascinating, and it comes to us from one of the best channels for this type of thing. This is, of course, from Kurleem. I was tagged in this, so thank you. That's actually really cool. And you got to check this channel out. It's been featured here before. It's one of my favorite channels to watch if you're looking at Europe versus America type experiences, and even just different automotive and infrastructure topics, that kind of thing within Europe. It's a really great channel. So this will be linked below so you can watch this whole thing uninterrupted, as I will only feature parts of it here. And definitely check them out. So anywho, let's pull this up and see how this goes. This is going to be interesting, I think. Look at that. Whoa.
So we are on the Stena Britannica ferry right now, leaving Hoek van Holland in the Netherlands and heading over to Harwich in England. So we are driving from the Netherlands to England. The car is...
That is too cool. To me, that is so... This is only the second video I've ever seen with this, and the first video I saw was a gentleman that was driving a semi-truck from England over to France through... That was not through a ferry, though. That was through the English Channel, or the Channel Tunnel, or whatever, and that was cool. But it is just interesting concept to me. That's something that I don't deal with on a daily basis. I don't deal with at all, actually. I've never, had to drive my car onto a ferry and go to another landmass. That's actually really interesting.
Here on this ferry with us. This ferry is really cool. It's like a mini cruise ship, which is really exciting.
Whoa.
And this is another way to travel from mainland Europe over to the UK.
Cool sunset, by the way. That is actually way nicer than I would have imagined.
Ship, which is really exciting. And this is another way to travel from mainland Europe over to the UK with the car,
so cool.
Which is really cool. So I'm excited to try that. Drive a little bit in the UK and show you a little bit about that. We're going to be heading to Bath and driving around the London area as well. So I'll be sure to cover what it's like to drive around England, especially driving a left-hand drive car on the wrong side of the road, which is really interesting. I previously covered driving to the UK via Calais, via the Eurotunnel.
Oh, the
Eurotunnel,
Eurotunnel,
back
yeah.
That way, but today we're...
That's what I was trying to think of earlier. Apologize. I totally messed up the name. Yes, the Eurotunnel. That's what I was trying to mention earlier.
We're actually heading there via the ferry from the Netherlands. So really cool. It's a shorter drive. So let's jump into it.
Dude, that's cool. I wonder how long it takes. I can't imagine it takes like extremely long. Maybe like an hour and a half or something. I don't know. 2 hours maybe? I'm not sure. Maybe it's like 10 minutes.
So we've gotten off the ferry. We've made it here. We're currently at Diddley Squat Farms. So if you know, you know. So we're starting this journey kind of at this. We're currently at Diddley Squat Farms. So if you know, you know.
Hashtag if you know.
So we're starting this journey.
I don't know. Damn it.
At this stop, and we're going to be driving around a little bit. Did some driving this morning. The ferry was a super cool experience. I would definitely recommend it. Very easy, very seamless, and yeah, it's been nice driving around.
What are those cool? Is this behind him a Land Rover? And was the other one a Land Rover right here?
So I would definitely recommend it. Very easy, very seamless, and yeah, it's been nice driving around.
Or was it like a smaller,
maybe like later in this video.
Toyota or a Suzuki? I don't know.
About driving in the UK that I find kind of strange or interesting, but so far it's been a good experience. So let's continue the drive around here and make our way to Bath.
So I look at driving in the UK two different ways. Driving on, let's say, like the highway like this, and then I've seen some like beautiful country roads and stuff, like on Top Gear back in the day and stuff. Like that looks cool. The skinny, twisty, hilly roads out in the countryside, that looks amazing. I think that would be great, especially in a fun car. But when we're talking about like towns and cities, that's where it gets crazy. Like, so for me as an American, the it's not a fear. That's way overstatement. It's definitely not a fear, but it would be on my mind, just a little bit nervousness, traveling, to a country on the other side of the world, whether that be anywhere in like Asia or Europe, probably specifically. I would just be a little anxious driving the first time. I'm a good driver. I like cars. That's like what I'm about. But it would just be like I want to drive well, and I would probably expect myself to, in my head, like I want to do, drive perfectly the first time, and I feel like I would be a little nervous just because you're in a new place, right? Everything looks different, and the roads might be different, the signs, everything, right? On one hand, it probably wouldn't be so bad. I mean, the drivers are probably per capita more courteous than some American ones. I mean, it is literally like the Wild West out here on the road sometimes. But I feel like the UK would be even more of a challenge than, say, Germany or the Netherlands or something. Particularly because, you're dealing with, not in his case right here, but if I rented a car, I'm dealing with right-hand drive. I'm dealing with the other side of the road. And like London, for example, looks like a really intimidating city. It's so big and like, well populated. And I feel like driving there would be like, whoa, like super overwhelming. I would probably suck. I would be so nervous for that. It would be fun because, like, for the first time I could rent a car that's a manual transmission. I'm all about that. I love that. I know, like, 99% of Americans can't drive those. Shame on you guys. I freaking love manual transmissions. I own a couple, so I would be hyped for that, but... Roundabout junctions everywhere. See, this is what's cool. Seeing all like the lane markings, like there is a lot of weird junctions like this, which it would be different, man. And then like seeing this makes me nervous because the road is small. You have a car coming this way. To me, in my American mind here, this looks like a one-way street. You already have cars and vans parked here, taking up a good portion of the lanes. And then you're supposed to have two cars, coming at each other with this going on and a wall over here. Yeah, see, that looks nice.
I'll cover all of that in a bit more detail, but it's really cool to be driving on the other side of the road with a left-hand drive car. Another interesting challenge that I think is quite doable if you kind of pay attention and you kind of get used to it and don't really think twice about it. If you really keep to the left and remember that you should be on the curbside if you're driving a left-hand drive car on the left side of the road. So that hasn't been too much of a challenge. The city of Bath was a beautiful city. I would highly recommend it. And one of the things that's been interesting being in England.
Yeah, it is cool looking there. It's just fun to see different places. The UK looks really cool as well. To add to the challenge aspect, it is interesting because he is driving in a left-hand drive car on the wrong side of the road, right? So it's kind of an added layer of difficulty to get used to and overcome, right?
England it's very car oriented, or a bit more car oriented than I'm used to in the Netherlands.
Interesting.
Which is kind of nice. So there was a lot of city parking lots around the city center of Bath. And what was really cool is the way to pay for parking in these city parking lots was all mobile. They used these app clips, which was really cool. Easy on the iPhone with Apple Pay.
Wow.
So super easy to drive to the city center, park, and pay, which is really, really cool.
That parking looked pretty cheap. Man, Chicago parking's a joke, dude. It's so expensive. It is interesting to hear, like in this case for maybe European standards, the UK is like more car oriented, which as an American, you love to hear. That's what we're used to, right? So many times with a lot of the European videos, I always see this heavy emphasis on, anti-car, like everything's so much better and infrastructure is better and you don't need a car like you do in America and stuff. But I think you got to take that with a grain of salt. Of course, it's different infrastructure and less reliant on a car for massive travel like the U.S. is. I don't, disagree with that. To sometimes act like you don't need a car at all, I think it's naive, right? There's definitely lots and lots of cars throughout Europe in every country, and a lot of people drive. And look at the UK, like there's cars everywhere. There's huge parking lots. Like, come on. There's still car culture in Europe. And I feel like what he said, I feel like from what I've seen, the UK does have, a lot of people that commute in cars, right? Yes, there's other options and usually more options than American cities. But yeah, people still drive cars. So it's cool to hear that.
Now we're going to be heading to Stonehenge, so driving on some more English countryside roads, and then eventually make our way to London later today. So I'll be sure to cover all of that in more detail.
Ooh, look at that. That's cool, dude. Stonehenge. That's a bucket list.
Jam to see Stonehenge from the road.
Oh, I didn't know it was right near the road.
So we're just wrapping up at Stonehenge. We drove here through some country roads from Bath just before heading back towards London. And this was one of the reasons why we wanted to drive here, was because it's nice to have our own car and kind of explore on our own timetable.
That's why I like car traveling. I mean, of course, public transportation, you know, nice advanced tram systems, train systems, buses, you know, etc. Of course, that's nice. And for daily commutes, and if you can have your life and job surrounded by that, that's great. But when it comes to road trips are fun, man. I want a car. I want to go at my pace. I want to see what I want to see. It's interesting. I always do car spotting. It's interesting to see, like, look at these vans. I don't even know what those are. The only different kind of van that we can even buy in the U.S., and I'm talking about, like, they're ultra rare, like rarer than seeing a Dodge Viper, is you can get a Mercedes Metris here. And I've seen, like, one in the last year. I've seen one. It kind of looks like a Mercedes Metris. One of these does. Otherwise, I don't know what they are. It's interesting. They're definitely not minivans that we have. And I think this is a Renault over here. Kind of cool to see.
We don't have to rely on buses or trains and, you know, kind of rely on public transportation. We can kind of explore at our own pace. So it's been really nice to just be able to take the car and go and even see some historic sites as part of this trip. So that's been really cool. So now we're going to jump back in the car and head towards London.
I could see that's relatable. Heading towards a big city, London, and there's traffic. Now that's relatable anywhere you go in the world, right? Oh, we even have some ambulance footage. You guys know I love that. Ooh, and the double-decker bus, that's cool. There's definitely some iconic vehicles in London. You got the red double-decker buses, which I'd love to learn about sometime. Those look cool. Look at even a Tesla there. And then I spy a London taxi already. There's another one right here. Dude, those are so cool. Holy crap. I don't know why I like those. I think I've explained in a previous video, I just love like fleet vehicles, like work vehicles that are basic and robust. You know, that's why I have, you know, one of my cars I love driving the most is, you know, an old Crown Victoria Police Interceptor, right? It was an old squad car. It's just no carpet, no options. It's very basic, but it's durable as hell. It's such a joy to drive. It's so mechanical. I love it. And I would love one of these. I wonder, obviously we never use these, but I wonder if there's any of these for sale in the U.S. Like, that would be really cool if somehow there was. London taxi for sale USA. Let's see. Dude, it would be so freaking cool. Let's see, classic.com, London Taxis International Market. What? Boca Raton, Florida. Here is one. 25 grand? What? 45 grand. What the hell, guys? Look at how cheap they are in the UK. Look at this one. This is in this is in Southampton. Only 1,500 pounds. I think yeah, that's pounds, right? Because this is euros down here. 1,500 pounds. That's cheap. That's awesome. Here, they're freaking, like, ridiculous. Let's see it, though. Oh, my God. I didn't know they came in other colors. I thought they were always black. That's, like, the ones I see in, I guess, media are always black, right? With, like, a yellow sign or something. Wait, left-hand drive. What? I thought they were right-hand drive in the UK. Doesn't have any photos. That's kind of lame, huh? Well, anyway, there is one. That's something we could explore sometime. Are these expensive? I mean, these were durable, right? I imagine these were easy to work on and durable. I would hope so. I mean, it's a taxi, right? It's made to drive itself to hell and back. Like, these things just work and work and work. There's another one. This is in Atlanta, Georgia. Jeez, no pictures again on that. Yeah, see, this is I believe this is a black one, but it has like an advertisement on it, which, yeah, I'm sure that's common. That's nice and cheap. So 1,500 pounds is only $1,900 US. I believe that's US dollars, I hope. Wow, that is cheap. That's more like it. I would love to pick me up one of these. I wonder how much it would be if I could like somehow buy one online in the UK and then ship it over here. I'm sure the shipping would be more like if I got one of these for under $2,000, I'm sure the shipping would probably be more than that. It would be more to ship it than to buy it. Then I'd have to be like fingers crossed that it actually runs and isn't like totally a, heap of trash, right? I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Anything you want to share about those, or if they are cheap like this and the U.S. places are really marking them up, I don't know. What's your insight on that? Anyone know?
Driving here, aside from driving on the other side of the road with a left-hand drive car, the first thing I want to mention is speed limits, speed cameras, everything about speed. So aside from the fact that the United Kingdom uses miles per hour, that's not the interesting thing for me.
That is interesting. I always forget that sometimes, is that the whole like debate, everyone calls Americans freak because we don't use metric nearly as much at all. Of course, our units, imperial units, miles per hour, horsepower, all that stuff, right? The UK, we definitely share some thoughts there for sure, because they do use miles per hour in the UK, and that's cool. Like I vibe with that for sure. So that would be a little easier to adjust because that's like very familiar. But it is odd if you're driving within Europe. You go from somewhere in France or, in his case, Amsterdam all the way up to the UK. It's a little bit of an adjustment because you're in a car that's set up for kilometers per hour. You're in a left-hand drive car, not a right-hand drive car. It is a weird
are the speed limits
adjustment
on motorways, A roads, B roads, and even in built-up areas and in the city. So right now I'm on a motorway, and the speed limit, which is, I believe, the national speed limit, is 70 miles per hour, about 110 kilometers an hour, which is good. Nothing wrong with that. What's been interesting is on some of the smaller B roads and A roads, I could be getting them mixed up, but what's been interesting on those smaller roads is the speed limits have also been either 60 or 70 miles per hour. And in some cases, the single lane road, one lane in each direction, which to me felt quite fast, especially some of the roads were quite narrow. And it was a pretty high speed limit for some of those roads. And even some of the small...
So a road like this, 2-lane rural or country road, we would call it, these are usually always 55 miles per hour in the U.S. I don't think you're ever going to see these above that, maybe 60 somewhere, but 55 almost always. You're never going to see a little like road like this at 65, 70, 75. Like that's never going to happen. Only, multi-lane highways and interstates, those are going to be depending on the state. They're going to be 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, some places 85, so.
Smaller roads that kind of go through some of the farmland that we saw.
Sounds like they're faster.
2 cars, and officially the speed limit is 60 miles per hour, but you wouldn't dare drive that speed, especially considering at some point, you're basically mirror to mirror with some other cars.
Yeah.
So
that is freaky. That is interesting how the speed limit seems kind of rather high for a narrow road like that.
It's been interesting to see. In terms of speed limits in built-up areas, I know the standard used to be 30 miles per hour. I still saw 30 miles per hour, which is about 50 kilometers per hour in some areas. But I notice now the city of London is actually making that 20 miles per hour around the city.
Oh, wow. So this must be a newer thing. 20. You know what? That's not such a bad adjustment because, if you're in some really crowded and just, small inner city roads, 20 is fine, honestly. It sounds slow. Sounds like, oh, my God, that's so slow. But it's really not in city roads. You're going intersection through little tight curves, and there's cars everywhere, people, pedestrians everywhere. Yeah, you don't even have time to go 30 or 35. It's too much. 20 is, I at least I think in my head sounds like it would.
Which I don't
be
mind.
fine.
It's actually safer.
Yeah, it should be
a bit
safer.
Quieter and easier to actually drive through London a little bit. As crazy as driving through London is.
Yeah,
it
sounds
seems like
crazy.
20 miles per hour
sounds
is becoming the
intimidating.
norm for built-up areas, but I still saw 30 miles per hour, which I always thought 30 miles per hour through some of the smaller towns and built-up areas was actually quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because in places like the Netherlands, when you drive through similar areas, it's usually 30 kilometers per hour. Which is similar to 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So those slower speed limits actually kind of make sense to me. I think the UK loves speed cameras. I know these were technically invented in the Netherlands by the Dutch, but there have
Wow.
been so many speed cameras here. Average speed cameras, point-in-time
Whoa.
speed cameras, warnings of speed cameras, real warnings and fake warnings as well, where I've seen signs where there's no speed cameras. I think...
Dude, what? They're everywhere. I don't think I would particularly like that, although you can't argue against it, right? I mean, it keeps you honest, right? It would just be kind of like annoying to see camera stuff all over just because I'm used to not seeing that. Only when you get near certain suburbs and, certain areas of Chicago, for example, like in my experience, you will see areas that have speed cameras. But literally like 95% of my life, because I do live outside of Chicago, more in the rural areas, most places in Illinois outside Chicago, for example, or in Wisconsin or Iowa, you're not going to see speed cameras. There's no signs. There's no speed cameras. You just you follow the speed limit, as if there is a police in a squad car taking radar. That's about it. Speed cameras are just not a thing, at least in my daily life, for driving. So that would be pretty overwhelming, being bombarded by those. It would just be different, right?
I think it's
That's
safe
crazy.
to say don't chance it with speeding in the UK, because there are speed cameras all over, even more than I've seen in France, Italy, Germany, etc.
Wow.
In the cities, on the motorways, on the A roads, all of the roads that I've driven on have had speed cameras. So yeah, it's really, really strict about speeding, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just something to...
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Let me reiterate. That is not a bad thing to be strict about speeding and keeping everything more safe. That's not, no one's advocating against safety. But it just would be different. And especially, man, if you're like a car guy in the UK and you have like a fast car, because I've seen Top Gear, I've seen social media, like I know people in the UK, there are people that have fast cars. Pretty freaking sure they have some pretty awesome car culture. That would be, how do you deal with that, If you do hit the fun pedal a little bit, just for a second, right? Could get in some trouble pretty easily.
Be driving around here.
How do you deal with that?
Roundabouts. You can't come to the United Kingdom without talking about roundabouts.
Yeah, and so there are a couple sections of this video I did skip. You need to check out the link down there and watch the whole thing fluidly, see the parts you missed here. Very interesting insight from him. This was pretty cool to hear about. One of the closing things here is also about roundabouts. By the way, let me just throw in there, I love roundabouts. And certain states use them a lot, like Wisconsin in particular uses roundabouts a lot, and I love it up there. In Illinois, we don't use them a lot. So for some reason, most Americans hate roundabouts. I don't know why. I don't think they can even articulate why. I think roundabouts are safer, and I can tell you what, they're way more efficient. They're way more fast. Like sitting at four-way stops with the red lights is just so annoying. It's like over and over again. It's really repetitive and takes a long time to get places. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Yeah, check out the links down there. Tell me your thoughts in the comments on driving in Europe in general. Like, what are some of the places you found challenging maybe to drive, or just very different and unique driving experience within Europe? I think the UK could be a candidate for that, because you just right off the bat, you have the different cars, right-hand drive, you have driving on a different side of the road. And I think they do have a lot of interesting intersections, junctions, roundabouts, narrow roads, old infrastructure, old villages. I think it's really kind of interesting. And I really have to do it in some video games. I think that'd be fun to kind of like digitally test drive what that would be like. But yeah, that's about it for this one, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. You'll have to let me know your opinion on speed cameras in the comments below. And be honest, tell me if the speed cameras have caught you before, and how that goes, right? How easy is it to get caught by those? What kind of fines you looking at? I guess I've been lucky. I haven't really had to deal with that. So I've always just had to watch out for the old cop car on the side of the road, knowing that someone's in there probably taking radar. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Please throw a thumbs up on there if you did. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community we do have here. And That's about it for this one, y'all. My name's Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, catch you later.